The CEO of Harbor Strategic Public Affairs, John Sellek, is here to give us some of his views, learned views, and maybe what to take away from what happened in New Hampshire as former President Donald Trump wins again. Nikki Haley vows to stay in, and I'm interested, John, in hearing what you have to say, your reaction. Good afternoon. Welcome back to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me. And I like the way that you describe my opinions, learned opinions. I'm not sure everyone else would say that, so I'm going with your description.
It depends on if they agree with you or disagree with you. That's how that works.
That's the truth. You and being on the radio show host for as long as you had, you would know that better than anyone, right?
Yeah, let me ask you what happened last night, because I'm getting so many different, it all depends on who you're listening to, which is why I was looking forward to listening to you. We had all these people saying how he was going to kill her, he was going to run ramshot over her, and she was going to be, she's going to have to say, I got to leave. And then I had people say, wow, he didn't beat her as badly as we thought he was going to. I mean, I don't quite know how to take all this.
Yeah, and that's understandable because there are a lot of different ways you can cut it. And frankly, by traditional standards, getting 55% and beating your opponent by 11 points is quite a win. I mean, that's basically the size of victory that Gretchen Whitmer had over Tudor Dixon in the 2022 governor's race. That's a big win to get 54, 55%. In this case, in this presidential level stuff, we're talking about expectations that are rising and falling day in and day out. And everybody had said for a long time that, just wait till we get to New Hampshire. That's where Nikki Haley is going to shine. And in effect, she did. She got 44% of the vote. That means there's a big chunk of the vote in an open primary like this one, which includes independents and probably some Democrats, that Trump couldn't just run away with it. And I think that the Trump team's goal, their expectation they set, was to wipe the floor with her, to knock her out of the game now. They don't want to wait a month until they get to South Carolina. You saw a cavalcade of people who worked with Nikki Haley, who were endorsed appointed to the U.S. Senate by Nikki Haley, like Senator Tim Scott, who all trudged up to cold freezing New Hampshire to endorse Donald Trump. They were really trying to put the kill on. And it didn't quite work, and we go to that expectations game. Under a normal election standard, this is a pretty solid victory. Under a Donald Trump, I'm going to run away with this and be president again, it didn't turn out to be the runaway they thought. It turned out to actually be about half the size of even what the polling numbers were showing over the last few days. So It's a mixed result, and it's not the one Donald Trump won, and I think that's what we saw as the tone of his remarks after the win last night.
Well, and I need your professional thought on this. So I get all the stuff sent to me, all the news and information, and I pay attention to as much of it as I can. And here's the headline from the New York Times. Donald Trump easily defeated Nikki Haley, casting doubt on her continued viability in the GOP presidential race. The story starts, the former president's victory again underscores his durable hold on Republican primary voters and raises questions about Ms. Haley's path forward. Interesting, and would have been applicable, I guess, this morning as a quote. But this quote and this headline came to me last night at 8:06 p.m. So what's
it's almost like it was already written.
Well, yes. Well, what was going on there? Well, at 8:06, 6 minutes after the final places closed and people were still in line to vote, what were they trying to manipulate by this headline and this story?
Well, I talked earlier about traditional expectations, and for Donald Trump, winning this thing was going to happen. So I bet a lot of stories were almost put to bed. They just waited to plug the numbers in. The only surprise, per se, was that the polling showed as Ron DeSantis dropped out and Ramaswamy dropped out, that all these votes would be shifting to Trump, and he would run away with it. And to the Trump campaign's credit, they were putting on a pretty aggressive attack campaign against Nikki Haley, that she was essentially this liberal Trojan horse, that she had to rely on the votes of a lot of Democrats in this open primary to try to win, which is all true. But the bottom line going forward is, will we see another state that is open and allowing non-Republicans to vote in their primary? And will we see as many college-educated, moderate GOP or former GOP voters who are willing to jump into a primary going forward we may not see that again. And I think that's why the RNC chair, Michigan's own Romney McDaniel, came out last night and said, hey, I need to unify the party. Looking forward to the other primaries to come. They don't look as easy for Nikki Haley to even score 45% or 44%. The audiences are going to become a lot more conservative, and the entrance polling and exit polling from last night showed that Donald Trump cleaned house with self-identified Republicans, 74% to 25%, and Nikki Haley cleaned up everywhere else with independents and moderates. Are we going to see another primary that will have this many independents and moderates and even Democrats joining in? Probably not. So it's going to be a tough road. The unknowns are, one, South Carolina is coming up in a month, and that is Nikki Haley's home state. Poll numbers don't look good for her, but can she make a final stand there, having been governor back-to-back and served in the legislature? That's a possibility. And I have a feeling as long as the donors are willing to front the money, Nikki Haley will wait as long as she can to see what happens in these trials, to see if Donald Trump is convicted of any crimes and what effect that may or may not have on his support.
Before I let you go, John Sellek, CEO, Harbor Strategic Public Affairs. How much did Nikki Haley benefit from New Hampshire Democrats crossing over to throw off Trump by voting for her?
There's little doubt that she got support from Democrats who crossed over. The independents are usually a mixed bag of, people that don't want to identify themselves, but there's a lot more moderate, higher education, higher college education attainment levels in New Hampshire than a lot of states that are about to come.
All right. And boy, how embarrassing would it be if she did really poorly in South Carolina where she was governor? That's just,
Makes you wonder how bad you really want to be president, right? To go to your home state and potentially get wiped out.
I guess it does. Well, it takes a certain kind of person to run for president of the United States anymore. Isn't that the truth?
It certainly does.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your work always.
Thank you, Paul W. Talk to you later.
John Sellek, CEO of Harbor Strategic Public Affairs. We get it all here for you on the Paul W. Smith Focus Show at WJR.